A black janitor blew bubbles to calm an autistic little boy in crisis, not knowing his white billionaire father was watching. "Get away from him! That boy might bite!" The security guard's cry echoed through the marble lobby of Thorne Industries like a gunshot. Sarah Johnson froze, her hands still holding the mop, as she watched the chaotic scene unfold. At the center of the commotion, a little white boy of about 6 was huddled on the cold floor, rocking back and forth, his arms wrapped tightly around his knees. His green eyes were wide with panic. Around him, 5 executives in suits stood uselessly, whispering about behavioral episodes. Sarah was 42 and had 20 years of experience with special needs children, first as a teacher, then as a mother to an autistic son. She knew sensory overload when she saw it, and she also knew these rich people had no idea what they were doing. "Can I try to help?" Sarah's calm voice cut through the collective panic. The security guard blocked her with his arm. "You're just the night janitor. Stay out of this." The last employee who tried to approach him was fired on the spot. Sarah didn't respond. Instead, her eyes met the boy's, and something passed between them, a silent recognition that transcended any social barrier. She had seen that same lost look in her own son, Leo, years ago. Ignoring the security guard, Sarah walked over to her cleaning cart, picked up a small bottle of detergent, and sat down on the Italian marble floor, keeping a respectful distance of 10 feet from the boy. She dipped her fingers into the bucket and began blowing soap bubbles. 1, 2, 3. The boy's swaying slowed, his eyes fixed on the iridescent spheres floating through the air. Each bubble was a small work of ephemeral art, each carrying a little of the tension away. From the upper mezzanine, a man watched silently. Julian Thorne, the billionaire CEO of Thorne Industries, had commanded rooms full of world leaders and crushed hostile takeovers, but watching a janitor calm his son with bubbles, he could barely breathe. Noah, his son, his mystery, his heaviest burden, was finally quiet. Not because of the $15,000 a week therapists, and not because of specialists flown in from Switzerland. It was because of a black woman in a janitor's uniform who had the courage to sit on the floor. Julian took the elevator down, his expensive dress shoes echoing on the marble as he approached the scene. All the executives straightened up, but Sarah continued blowing bubbles, oblivious to the corporate storm about to break over her. "Miss Johnson," Julian's voice cut through the air like broken glass, "I need to talk to you now." Sarah stood slowly, her eyes still on the boy, who was now lying on his side, completely calm, watching a single bubble hover just above his face. She knew she was about to be fired. 20 years of her career destroyed for a moment of compassion. But when she looked into Julian Thorne's eyes, she saw something she didn't expect. Not anger, but something much more dangerous: gratitude. And anyone who knows the truly powerful knows their gratitude always comes with a price you never saw coming. If you're enjoying this story of how a simple act of kindness was about to change 2 lives forever, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what happened in that office over the next 15 minutes would completely rewrite the rules of the game. Julian Thorne's office took up the entire 42nd floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. Sarah entered slowly, her rubber sneakers making a muffled sound on the 6-figure Persian rug. "Sit down," Julian ordered, gesturing to a leather chair that probably cost more than Sarah's monthly salary. He remained standing behind his glass desk, a perfected intimidation tactic. "Who taught you that?" he finally asked, his blue eyes fixed on her. "The bubbles? The technique? Whatever that was." Sarah took a deep breath. "My son has autism. I learned out of necessity." "Your son," Julian repeated, as if testing a strange concept. "And where did you learn about therapeutic techniques? Some extension course? A weekend workshop?" The condescension was subtle, but Sarah caught it immediately. 20 years of dealing with rich parents who thought money bought expertise had taught her to recognize that tone. "I was a special education teacher for 17 years, she replied calmly. "I specialized in autism spectrum disorders from a top university." I have a master's in educational psychology. The silence that followed was deafening. Julian blinked, once, then twice, as if processing a system error. A teacher. He said the word slowly, as if savoring a particularly elaborate lie. And now you work as a night janitor? People have to eat? Sarah replied flatly. Education budgets were cut. Special ed programs were the first to go. It's not a hot market for teachers specializing in children the system prefers to ignore. Julian finally sat down, his executive control wavering for the first time in years. You're telling me you have more qualifications than most of the therapists I've hired for Noah. And you're working as a janitor. I'm saying that qualifications on paper mean nothing if you don't know how to connect. Sarah leaned forward slightly. How many specialists have you brought in for Noah? 10? 20? All with impressive degrees and even more impressive price tags. The muscle in Julian's jaw tightened. 43. 43 different professionals in 4 years. And how many of them got him to say a full sentence? None. Sarah nodded. Because they came to fix him. I came to get to know him. Julian was silent for a long moment, studying the woman in front of him. Everything about her challenged his carefully organized categories. A black janitor with a master's degree, a woman who cleaned bathrooms but spoke like an academic. Someone he had assumed was disposable but who possessed exactly the skill he had been desperately searching for. I want to hire you, he finally said, to work with Noah as a therapeutic consultant. $15,000 a month, part-time. You keep your current job until we're sure this works. Sarah laughed. A low, rich sound that echoed through the marble and steel office. Mr. Thorne, you're not offering me a job. You're trying to buy your way out of a moral dilemma. Julian's face hardened instantly. Excuse me? You've just discovered you completely underestimated someone based on her work clothes and the color of her skin. Now you're trying to turn me into another employee to make yourself feel better about your own prejudice. I'm not prejudiced, Julian snapped, his voice cutting like glass. Then why did you assume I was just an uneducated janitor? Why didn't you ask about my background before judging me unfit to be around your son? Julian opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. For the first time in decades, someone had broken through his corporate armor and exposed something he didn't want to see. Sarah rose slowly. Noah doesn't need another expensive employee, Mr. Thorne. He needs someone who sees him for who he is, not the project you want him to become. Then what do you suggest? Julian's voice was lower now, less command, and more genuine question. Let me spend time with him. No cameras, no stopwatches, no progress reports. Just time. And in return? Sarah smiled. Not the professional smile she reserved for hostile bosses, but something genuine and slightly dangerous. In return, maybe your son will learn that the world isn't just a cold place full of people trying to change him. She walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Mr. Thorne, next time someone stops to help your son, maybe consider asking about their qualifications before assuming they don't exist. The door closed with a soft click, leaving Julian alone with a realization that bothered him more than any defeat in court or loss on the stock market. He had found exactly what he was looking for in the last place he would have thought to look, and he had almost lost it because of his own prejudices. But what he didn't know was that Sarah Johnson had spent 4 years watching the rich and powerful through their most vulnerable moments, cleaning their offices, listening to their private conversations, and witnessing their weaknesses when they thought no one was paying attention. And now, for the first time, one of them had given her exactly the opening she'd been waiting for to show that intelligence and compassion didn't come with price tags or dress codes. 3 days passed before Julian Thorne broke the silence. The call came during Sarah's night shift, his voice sounding different, less corporate command, more human hesitation. Noah hasn't eaten since our conversation, he said without preamble. He hasn't drawn. He hasn't spoken. He's regressing. Sarah paused in her cleaning of the executive bathroom. And what do you want from me? Accept my offer, please. I haven't changed my mind about the terms, Sarah replied calmly. No supervision, no stopwatches, no reports. Agreed. The next morning, Sarah arrived at Julian's Upper East Side penthouse with her 16-year-old son, Leo, at her side. The teenager, who had inherited his mother's emotional intelligence and the insight of someone who had grown up observing the world through different lenses, carried a backpack full of art supplies. "I thought Noah might benefit from interacting with someone closer to his age," Sarah explained when Julian opened the door, clearly surprised. "He's 16, Julian noted as if it were a problem. "And Noah is 8. Sometimes the age gap creates a safe space that peers can't offer." Leo smiled politely. "Hello, Mr. Thorne. My mother told me about Noah. I brought some materials that might interest him." Julian studied the young man, his quiet confidence, the way he spoke without intimidation, the natural way he entered the apartment as if he belonged there. It was disconcerting to see such poise in someone so young, especially someone from a background so different from his own. Noah was in the same position as always, huddled in the corner of his room. But when he saw Leo, something in his eyes changed. The teenager sat down on the floor naturally, taking a set of watercolors and textured paper out of his backpack. "Hi, Noah. I'm Leo. You don't have to talk to me if you don't want to, but I thought we could paint together." What happened over the next 2 hours left Julian completely disarmed. Not only did Noah approach Leo, he began mixing colors, creating shades he had never tried before. And when Leo began telling stories about the colors, how blue was the sky wanting to hug the earth, how yellow was the sun laughing, Noah whispered his first word in days: "Orange." "That's right," Leo smiled. "Orange is when red and yellow decide to dance together." Sarah watched from the doorway, making mental notes not only about Noah, but about Julian's reactions. The man was discreetly filming with his cell phone, a corporate habit of documenting everything, but also something deeper. For the first time, he was seeing his son not as a problem to be solved, but as a person being understood. But the peace didn't last long. "Mr. Thorne," the voice came from the intercom, "Dr. Peterson is here for his scheduled session with Noah." Julian's face hardened. "I completely forgot." Dr. Harrison Peterson was exactly the kind of expert Julian used to hire. A top university degree, expensive suits, obscene fees, and an arrogance that filled any room before he even entered it. At 52, he had built a lucrative career treating the children of the elite, charging $15,000 a session to apply techniques he could have learned from any basic manual. "Julian, dear." He entered the apartment as if he owned the place, barely noticing Sarah and Leo. "Let's see how our little Noah is progressing today." He stopped when he saw the scene on the floor. Noah painting calmly alongside Leo. Sarah sitting nearby taking notes in a worn notebook. "What is this?" Peterson asked, his voice heavy with professional disdain. "Who are these people?" "Dr. Peterson, this is Sarah Johnson and her son Leo. They're helping Noah." Peterson let out a laugh that sounded more like a bark. "Helping Julian? You can't just let anyone interact with a child who needs specialized care. That's irresponsible and potentially harmful." Sarah rose slowly, her height becoming more apparent. "Dr. Peterson, isn't it? I've read some of your articles. Interesting how your revolutionary techniques are almost identical to the standard practices we teachers were using 10 years ago." "Teachers?" Peterson laughed again. "Ah, so you're one of those? Let me guess, special education, some community college. You believe that love and patience solve everything. A master's degree in educational psychology. 17 years of practical experience. And you're right about one thing. I believe that love and patience work better than arrogance and inflated prices." The silence that followed was tense. Noah had stopped painting and was looking between the adults, his shoulders beginning to tense. "Julian," Peterson said, his voice now icy, "if you want to continue with my services, I must insist that you keep amateurs away from Noah's treatment. This is completely unprofessional." Julian looked at Noah, who had instinctively moved closer to Leo, then at Sarah, who remained impressively calm, and finally at Peterson, whose posture radiated the kind of authority he had respected for years. "Dr. Peterson," he said finally, "perhaps we can schedule another day." "If that's how you want to conduct your son's treatment," he replied, picking up his leather briefcase, "I can't be held responsible for the results. When this experiment fails, which it will, my phone number will remain the same." After he left, the apartment fell silent. Noah had returned to painting, but his brushstrokes were faster, more agitated. "Does he always talk like that?" Leo asked. Julian nodded slowly. "Most experts. They're so sure about everything." "Certainty," Sarah muttered, writing something in her notebook, "is a luxury only those who have never doubted themselves can afford." That night, after Sarah and Leo had left, Julian lay awake, reviewing everything he had witnessed. For the first time in years, Noah had spent 3 hours without a single crisis. He had tried new colors. He had connected with another person, and the woman who had made this possible had been instantly discredited by an expert who charged more for one session than Sarah earned in 2 months. What he didn't know was that Sarah had spent those 3 hours not only observing Noah, but him as well. Every reaction, every hesitation, every moment of doubt had been carefully noted in her notebook. Because Sarah Johnson had learned something important during her years cleaning executive offices, the most powerful people in the world are rarely confronted with their own contradictions. And when they finally are, the revelation can be devastating. As she walked through the dark streets toward the subway, Sarah opened her phone and sent a message to a contact she hadn't used in months. "I need a favor tomorrow night. It's about that project we discussed." The reply came within seconds. "I thought you gave up on that idea." "I gave up a lot of things when my husband died, but some battles are worth fighting, especially when you finally find the right battlefield." The emergency meeting of the Thorne Industries Medical Board took place on a gray Thursday, called by Dr. Peterson after he discovered that Sarah had been formally hired as Noah's therapeutic consultant. The conference room smelled of expensive coffee and bruised egos. "This is absurd." Peterson slammed his papers down on the glass table. "A company of Thorne's stature cannot allow unqualified charlatans to compromise serious medical treatment." Dr. Miranda Foster, a child neuropsychiatrist, nodded vigorously. "I couldn't agree more. Soap bubble therapy? That's dangerous pseudoscience." Julian sat at the head of the table, his laptop open, but his attention was divided between the discussion and the photos he was receiving from Leo, Noah painting, smiling, interacting with Leo in ways he hadn't done in years. "Mr. Thorne," Dr. Peterson leaned forward, "I need to be blunt. If you continue with this experiment, I can no longer associate my name with Noah's care. My professional reputation is at stake." "Your reputation," Julian repeated slowly. "Based on what results exactly, Dr. Peterson?" The silence was uncomfortable. In 2 years of treatment, Noah had shown no significant progress under Peterson's care. Then the door opened, and Sarah entered, wearing not her janitor's uniform but a simple suit and carrying a leather briefcase. Behind her was an elegant, gray-haired man no one recognized immediately. "Mr. Thorne, thank you for allowing me to participate in this discussion," Sarah said calmly, completely ignoring the hostile looks. "You weren't invited," Dr. Foster hissed. "Actually," the man behind Sarah smiled, "I asked for her to be here, Dr. Elias Vance, Editor-in-Chief of the Journal of Child Psychology. I'm here to discuss some troubling irregularities that have come to our attention." Peterson's face paled visibly. Sarah opened her briefcase and removed a series of documents. "During my 4 years working in this building at night, I've had involuntary access to many conversations and documents. Initially, I ignored it, but when I noticed a pattern, I began to document it." She slid photographs across the table. "Dr. Peterson, these are copies of your reports on Noah from the last 18 months. All identical, just with different dates. Copy and paste isn't exactly what I would call personalized care." That's invasion of privacy," Peterson stammered. "It's documentation of medical fraud," Dr. Vance corrected coldly. "Charging $15,000 a session using prefabricated reports is a federal crime." Sarah continued, her voice remaining calm as chaos erupted. "Dr. Foster, Here are transcripts of your phone conversations discussing how to extend treatment for wealthy children to maximize profits. Inadvertently recorded by the office cleaning system, but perfectly audible. Dr. Foster stood up abruptly, knocking over her chair. I'm going to sue you all. With what money? Sarah smiled for the first time. Because the federal investigation into your overbilling scheme began this morning, based on evidence I've collected over 4 years. Julian watched, fascinated, as the men who had treated his paternal despair as a business opportunity began to crumble before his eyes. You know what else I found out? Sarah opened another file. Noah wasn't the only child receiving purposely prolonged, ineffective treatments. I found documents from 17 different families, all billed for therapies these professionals knew were inadequate. Dr. Peterson tried one last card. You're just a janitor with a hero complex. No court will take your accusations seriously. Sarah laughed, a rich, genuine sound that echoed through the room. Dr. Peterson, you're right about one thing. I really am just a janitor. But I'm also the janitor who spent 1,400 nights cleaning your offices, listening to your private conversations, photographing documents you left open on your desks. She turned to Julian. And I'm the woman who realized that Noah didn't need more expensive therapists. He needed someone who saw him as a person, not a source of income. Dr. Peterson stood up, trying to maintain some dignity. This isn't over. I have connections. Influence. You had, Dr. Vance corrected. The State Medical Board will be notified today. Your licenses are being reviewed, and the families you exploited have already been contacted by lawyers specializing in medical malpractice. As Peterson and Foster left the room like fugitives, Julian was left alone with Sarah and Dr. Vance. Why did you help me? Julian asked. Sarah closed her briefcase. Because Noah deserved someone who would fight for him, and because sometimes justice needs witnesses who no one notices are paying attention. At that moment, Julian's phone vibrated with a message from Leo. Noah said his first complete sentence today. Mama, Sarah, coming back tomorrow. Julian looked at Sarah, tears in his eyes. He called you Mama? Kids, Sarah smiled. They always know who really cares about them, regardless of diplomas on the wall or hourly rates. But what none of them knew was that this would be just the first of many transformations to come. Because when you challenge an entire system based on prejudice and greed, the ripples you create can change much more than a single life. 6 months later, Sarah Johnson stood on the main stage of the Jacob Javits Convention Center, receiving a standing ovation from more than 3,000 mental health professionals gathered at the National Autism Congress. At her side, Noah smiled shyly, holding a pink microphone he had chosen, especially for the occasion. My name is Noah, he said, his clear voice echoing throughout the auditorium. And this is Mama Sarah. She taught me that being different doesn't mean you're broken. The audience erupted in applause. In the front row, Julian discreetly wiped away tears, no longer caring about his carefully constructed corporate image. Dr. Peterson and Dr. Foster had become pariahs in the medical community. Federal investigations resulted in fines of $2 million each, loss of medical licenses, and a list of malpractice lawsuits that would keep them busy for the next 10 years. Peterson now sold life insurance over the phone in Newark. Foster had moved to Montana, where he was trying to rebuild his life as an Uber driver. The Julian Thorne program for neurodiverse inclusion, Sarah continued, isn't just about therapy. It's about recognizing that every child brings unique gifts to the world that we need to learn to value. The foundation she and Julian had created together had already trained more than 500 educators in unconventional techniques. The therapeutic bubbles method had been documented in 17 academic studies, showing superior results to traditional treatments in 86% of cases. Leo, now 17, had become a nationally recognized advocate for the rights of neurodiverse children. His speech to Congress 3 months earlier had resulted in the passage of a federal law guaranteeing access to alternative therapies in the public health system. You know what moves me the most? Sarah continued, watching the attentive faces in the audience. Noah is no longer alone. We have 237 children in the program, each discovering his or her own language of colors, sounds, and movements. And their parents, executives, doctors, teachers are learning that love has no technical protocol. Julian had stepped down as president of Thorne Industries to devote himself fully to the foundation. His personal fortune, once focused on corporate acquisitions, now funded inclusion centers in 16 states. The Wall Street Journal had dedicated a cover story to him, titled, "From the Boardroom to the Floor: How a CEO Learned to Lead on His Knees." People ask me, Sarah smiled at the live camera, if I feel angry about the years I lost cleaning toilets when I could have been teaching. The truth is, those years taught me something no university could: how to observe, how to listen, how to recognize value where others see only invisibility. Noah stepped up to the microphone again. Mama Sarah says, we're all works of art. Some of us just need different paints. In the audience, parents cried openly. Professionals took frantic notes. Journalists documented every word of a boy who 3 years earlier had been considered a lost cause by traditional medicine. The greatest irony, Sarah concluded, is that the men who tried to silence me ended up amplifying my voice to the whole world. Dr. Peterson was right about one thing. I was just a janitor. But he forgot that janitors spend years observing, learning, documenting, and when they finally decide to speak, they have a lot to say. The audience rose to its feet in ovation. Flashes went off. Social media exploded with hashtag janitor, teacher, and Noah score. That night, at the gala dinner, Sarah received the National Award for Innovation in Special Education. In her acceptance speech, she dedicated the award to all the children who were called broken when they were really just misunderstood, and to the parents who had the courage to question experts who charged fortunes to apply prejudices disguised as science. Noah slept in Julian's lap on the drive home, his fingers still stained with blue and yellow paint from the artwork he had led earlier. Leo edited a video on his laptop, documenting another day in the life of a family that had completely redefined the meaning of normal. Do you know what changed everything? Julian asked Sarah as they watched the urban landscape roll by the car window. What? You refused to accept the place they assigned you. If you had remained just the invisible janitor, Noah would still be silent. I'd still be paying charlatans, and 237 other families would still be looking for answers in the wrong places. Sarah smiled. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying those who underestimate you. It's proving them so wrong that the whole world notices. Today, the Johnson method is taught at 43 universities. Noah, at 12, paints pictures that are sold in New York galleries, with all proceeds going to inclusion programs. And Sarah? She never had to clean a bathroom again in her life, but she keeps her janitor's uniform framed in her office with a plaque that reads, "A reminder of when people thought they knew who I was." If this story of how one woman turned prejudice into purpose touched your heart, subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that the greatest revolution happens when we stop accepting the place others choose for us and start building the world our children deserve to live.